So hopefully you remember that I declared September to be short book September because I was going to have a busy time at work, starting a new job. So that was my goal. Read lots of short books, no stress, get lots done, still stay on track for meeting my Goodreads goal, and I have to say it worked brilliantly. So the first book I finished reading in September was one that I mostly read the month before. I read it on the plane to and from Amsterdam, actually, because it seemed appropriate, because this book is set in Amsterdam, and that is The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. So this is about a young woman called Nella who, months after getting married, is finally moving to Amsterdam to live with her husband. It's the 17th century, and she's entering this world that she's not very familiar with. Amsterdam is a very strict place in terms of religion and social proprietary, and she is not used to dealing with all these social cues that she knows nothing about and she hasn't picked up on. She's also this odd mix of naive and worldly at the same time. She has this view of marriage that's very romanticised, and then she has this view of marriage which is quite horrific based on her own experiences. She has this dream of being in love and loved within a marriage, but then she's also grown up under the harsh conditions of having an alcoholic father. Her parents clearly were not in love, and so she brings both perspectives with her to this marriage, but she finds that it is nothing like she expected. They live in this grand house by a canal. Her husband's sister's still there, and she acts like she's the mistress. The servants don't act like any servants she would expect to have, and she barely sees her husband at all. One day he gives her this really bizarre gift of a doll's house, a gigantic doll's house, with all these rooms for her to furnish, and she's instructed to furnish it, because what else is she going to do with her time? She's a very wealthy woman who has servants, and she doesn't even need to work around the house. So Nella sets out to furnish this cabinet house, and while she's looking through this guide to craftspeople in Amsterdam, she discovers an entry for a miniaturist. She doesn't really know what a miniaturist does, except she assumes from the name they make small things. So she writes and sends some money and asks for some miniature objects. She gets those objects back, but then she also gets some other ones she hasn't ordered. And this whole weird process begins where sometimes she asks the miniaturist for things, sometimes she doesn't, but things arrive anyway, and they all relate in some way to her life and she just can't work it out. I really enjoyed this book. I found it very atmospheric, especially at the beginning, but I did find that the pace kind of started to slack from the middle to the end, and I found the end kind of unsatisfying in a way. The mystery of the miniaturist is never really solved. It's kind of presented as magical realism, and I do have a bit of a problem with magical realism because I like to have things explained to me. But overall, I did enjoy it and I would recommend it. I would especially recommend it if you're going to visit Amsterdam soon, because in the Dutch National Museum there is the actual doll's house, because the main character was a real person, although the events in the book probably didn't happen to her. And she did have a cabinet house, and you could see it there. It was also really good being able to kind of visualise the geography of the book from a street level view, thanks to my holiday. And I found that the book fell into my holiday, and the holiday fell into my enjoyment of the book, and so both enriched each other. Now, onto some short books. The first one I finished reading was What Katy Did Next. Now, I have never read this before. I read What Katy Did at school several times as a kid. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I used to read it over and over. But I only read What Katy Did relatively recently. So I was really intrigued to read What Katy Did Next and find out what the intrepid but also incredibly annoying, uptight Katy would do next. And what she does next is she goes on a trip around Europe, but she hates most of Europe. She hates London. She hates Paris. She only likes going to the warm parts of France and Italy, which, okay, fair enough if you like warm weather. Yeah, I guess. But how can you hate London and Paris? Just no. And a large portion of the book is taken up with caring for this sick child, and this child is the most annoying child when she's healthy. She's so whiny and demanding and selfish, and she just gets left at home a lot with a nanny. She doesn't really enjoy the holiday at all. But yeah, and then it cuts off too early, because the woman who's invited her on this tour around Europe is just like, nah, I don't want to travel without a man anymore. Seriously, that's it. She doesn't want to travel without a man anymore. She's like, oh, I can't go on without a man. Up to that point, she'd been travelling without a man. You know, she was all excited to meet up with her brother, who then sort of becomes the love interest for Katy, except he fancies someone else. And oh, it's just weird. It's just weird. But I still really enjoyed it. I found Katy less annoying in this book than she was in the last two, because a lot of her time is just kind of taken up with looking after other people, and then she just comes off as being irritatingly good, but, you know, she doesn't have that much to say, and I kind of cheered for her when the love interest became more interested in her. But oh dear. I can't travel around Europe anymore without a man. You were fine without a man. Then you met up with him. Oh my god. And it was just frustrating because I was actually really looking forward to them getting on the move again. They're like still in Italy because of the sick child crisis. And then they don't move on for ages. And I was really looking forward to the bit when they were moving on, not realising that the book was getting shorter and shorter. Like, yeah. There's like a few pages left at the point where the child is not sick anymore, and I'm just, yeah, I realise, oh dear. We're not going to go to Switzerland, are we? I've been told that pretty much all that happens in the rest of the series is that all the girls get married off, and it's quite tedious. Yay! Next up, I wanted to read something kind of in the same vein, but also not. So I read 5 on Brexit Island, which is a parody of Enid Blyton's famous 5 books. I loved these books when I was growing up. So, yeah, it was quite fun to read this, to have a bit of a flashback. I wouldn't, although I'm reading Katy books, I feel like they kind of stand up to adult rereading, interpretation, because they're kind of historical documents at the same time. In a previous video, when I was talking about what Katy did, I talked a lot about class and unspoken stuff to do with servants, and there's not really that much of that in the famous 5 books of what I remember, so I probably won't be rereading them. Maybe I might read Malory Towers one day, but then there was this guy who was reading them and putting reviews up of them on Goodreads, and they were hilarious and really in-depth, and I read those ones, so yeah, I probably don't need to actually reread Malory Towers. But anyway, 5 on Brexit Island. I actually really enjoyed this. It was a lot better than I thought it would be. I kind of thought that it would be a bit too silly, and maybe a bit mean, but it actually wasn't. It was very kind of generous and warm-hearted, but also quite brutal about all the political establishment and the roles they played in the EU referendum vote. EU referendum vote. It's just EU referendum. You don't need to say vote at the end. It's hard being a pedant and yet making verbal spells yourself. But yes, this was funny and cute. I won't be rereading it, but I do recommend you pick it up if you want a quick giggle. Then, still on the short books wagon, I read Deenie by Judy Blume. Now, I went into this kind of hoping I wouldn't like it, because I read Forever by Judy Blume, and I was just kind of about that. Like, I could see how it was groundbreaking at the time, but it didn't really move me, and so I was thinking, I'll read Deenie, probably won't like it, and then that'll be fine, because I'll just never have to read another Judy Blume book again. That'll be an author entirely off my TBR forever. Brilliant. I had to love it, didn't I? So, Deenie is about a girl who discovers she has scoliosis, basically, and she has to wear a brace, and there's a lot of detail on like the medical procedures, but there's also some family drama because her mum has always wanted her to be a model. She's always said that Deenie is the beauty and her sister Helen is the brains, and she's kind of pushed them both in that direction quite aggressively, and so she is more upset about Deenie's condition than Deenie is herself, because Deenie doesn't actually want to be a model. She finds it kind of boring and weird, and I really like that. I like the exploration of having a bad parent, of having this kind of enforced sibling rivalry, all the stuff she goes through with her friends and boys, and you know, obviously I think some of the medical information is going to be out of date now, but still that was really interesting as well. I didn't really know much about scoliosis before reading this book, and I feel really educated now. And yeah, Deenie is just, I think, a really realistic teen character. She's very grumpy, and she starts off being quite mean, but through this experience she kind of opens up and starts to consider that maybe she's thinking about things the wrong way. And, you know, okay, sometimes that can come off as quite a cheesy message, but I didn't think it did in this book. The next book I finished was actually an audiobook. I finished The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake by Aimee Bender. Now, this book is about a girl who can taste people's emotions in the food they make. And it kind of tells you how she discovered she had this ability, how she dealt with this ability, and kind of the story of her family surrounding that. I really, really liked the concept of this. And, you know, I went into it thinking it's literary fiction, it's going to be kind of high-minded, and, you know, I know what to expect when I read literary fiction, but oh my god, it was so slow-paced, so slow-paced. Like, at the start, she's like, when I was 9 years old, I think it was 9 years old, but anyway, in this childhood flashback begins, and this childhood flashback then takes up most of the book. Like, hours and hours passed, and she was still 9 years old, and I was just like, it was just really frustrating because not all that much happened. It was moving so slowly. I just really wanted to get forward in time to her being older and something to happen, basically. I wanted something to happen. And there's this whole thing with her brother, and the ending, a lot of people didn't like, but I actually quite liked the ending. I didn't have a problem with it. I just wished it would have got there sooner. I just felt like there was too much padding in this book and that it could have been cut down significantly and still had the same emotional impact, and that in fact the slowness of the pace lessened the emotional impact for me because I just kept thinking, get on with it. Finally, the last short book, September book that I actually finished in September was The Time of the Ghost by Diana Wynne Jones, and this was pretty awesome. So this is about a girl who isn't sure who she is or exactly what she is. The book opens and she's on a road and she's aware that something really bad has happened, but she doesn't know what. And she kind of moves through the world and she happens upon all these places that are weirdly familiar, and then she ends up in a house and then she sees these girls who she knows are her sisters. And she thinks she's the one who's not there, Sally. But then the one who is Sally appears to still be alive, but just not in their house at that moment. And she's very, very confused and she can't seem to make contact with them. The dog knows she's there. And she can move things if she tries very hard, but she can't talk to her sisters and she can barely make them aware of her presence. And of course, she doesn't know exactly who or what she is. What she does know, and what she becomes increasingly concerned with, is that something is out to get them. Something is trying to kill them. And even though she doesn't like her sisters a lot of the time, she knows that she has to get through to them somehow, and the book follows her trying to work it out and get in contact with them. I loved so many things about this book. I loved terrible parents, absolutely the worst parents. This is a theme with Diana Wynne Jones, bad parents, and apparently this book is actually the closest to her own upbringing. Her parents used to run a place, it's quite like a boarding school, and they would neglect her and her siblings. And it's just incredibly powerful to read it from the perspective of these characters. They know that their life isn't normal, they know that it's wrong, but they're powerless to do anything about it. And it's incredibly emotionally affecting. Then you've got the whole mystery of the book, which is just fantastic. Which sister is she? And you're trying to work it out as you read, and you keep thinking no, but then it turns out you're definitely wrong. And it's just brilliant. The one part where this book did kind of lose me is where there's some kind of like time stuff, and I guess like the kind of incorporeality of that is really hard for my brain to grasp, because I had this problem when I read Fire and Hemlock by Diana Wynne Jones. There was this one bit where everything gets just a bit too kind of abstract and I didn't really know what was going on, so I just had to let it wash over me. But it wasn't something that ruined the experience of reading the book for me, it's just something that I struggle with as a reader. But I would really recommend this if you want a creepy, fascinating, absorbing read. Especially around this time of year, because I think it would be quite an appropriate Halloween read. It's, you know, a bit scary, not too scary, but incredibly creepy and moving, and I loved it. So that's my September wrap-up. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these and if you've done your own September wrap-up, as I'd love to watch it. Also, let me know what you think of the lighting in this video. Is it okay? Do you have any suggestions for how I could improve it? Tell me. Thank you very much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. You'll see me again soon. Bye!